Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to Purposes Crossed. I hope that people who are called by Jesus for different purposes cross paths and exchange ideas. Recently, a friend asked me for my take on Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. In the NIV, the verse reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." The NRSV reads, "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope." The ESV reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." The first thing we should observe is that where the NIV has the word prosper, the NRSV and ESV have the word welfare. The actual word in Hebrew is shalom, the normal word for peace. Moreover, the word translated as plans in all three translations is the word machasaba, which is most often translated as the word thought, though sometimes it refers to plans that a craftsman may have in making some exquisite piece of artwork. So I guess it's okay in this context to render that word with plan. In that case, the verse should read, "For I know the plans that I plan for you, says Yahweh, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." In other words, the first thing we must recognize is that the verse says absolutely nothing about prospering anyone. Welfare is a reasonable translation, since that is one nuance of shalom. But it is completely unwarranted, and I would say irresponsible, especially given what prosperity means to most people today, to translate shalom with prosper here. Apart from this, even if the word means prosperity, we must look at the context of the verse. The verse comes in the middle of a letter that Jeremiah sent to the Judean exiles in Babylon. So right away, unless we find ourselves in a similar situation, we cannot appropriate this verse and apply it for our lives. But what did Jeremiah's words mean for the Judean exiles? At the start of the letter, Jeremiah tells the people to build houses in Babylon and plant gardens there. He tells them to go ahead and have children and let their children get married and themselves have children. Why does he say this? Precisely because they were going to be in the situation of exile for a long, long time. And since they were going to be in that situation for a long time, they should not stop living, but should carry on with their lives and settle in the land in which they were living as exiles. Jeremiah warns them of prophets who are prophesying a soon return to the land and calls them false prophets precisely because the exile was going to last 70 years. Hence, the false prophets then, as many today, were giving people false hopes. They had been sent into exile as punishment for their various sins, and they could not expect Yahweh to just send them right back right away. When Yahweh announces the 70-year period of exile, he understands now how devastating this would have been for the exiles to hear. We know that when we are facing a difficult period in our lives, days seem like months, months like years. To be displaced from one's home, even for a few weeks, it would be something that many of us may never face. But we know that many in the world who are facing such situation today as a result of many disasters. Can you imagine telling such people that they would be displaced and would live as foreigners among potentially antagonistic natives for 70 years? In this context, Yahweh tells the exiles not to despair because he plans to return them to the land after the exile. Moreover, from verse 15 onward, Yahweh tells the exiles that since they had misunderstood and misapplied his words, he will make the circumstances under which those who were still in the land would be sent into exile even more disastrous. In context, this verse is then the promise of assurance to those who were in an extremely grave situation, but within a warning that interpreting Yahweh's words incorrectly carries an even graver consequence. We must be very, very careful when interpreting such verses. Thank you for watching.